Health and fitness is like building a house. I was listening to a podcast earlier today about how being consistent is the equivalent of building a house from scratch, that is, and how you start with all the preparation, all the materials in, you draw up some plans, and you build things in stages and phases, and it's done over a long period of time, depending on the size of the house, obviously. But then once it's complete, it's never fully complete because there's things to be done on top of that. So let me break down the example for you, or the metaphor, as it's called. You start with the planning process, so you think about how the house is going to look, how it's going to feel, where switches and sockets are going to be, how the garden's going to be laid out, how the bedroom's going to be laid out. And that's similar to your health or your fitness goals, as in you want to run a marathon, you want to run 10k, you want to get down to a certain weight, you want to be able to put your hands above your head without there being any pain, you want to be able to get up and down off the sofa without moaning and groaning. You start getting some ideas from builders, asking individuals who would recommend builders, what advice they would give to people who've built their own homes, and then you start putting that plan into practice. You start by building the foundation first, so all the groundwork, all the concrete, it's all poured in. Then you start building the shell of the house, and then you start building up the walls, you start plasterboarding, plastering, but then at the same time you put all the electrics in as well and the plumbing. And that's similar to your fitness. So you start with building a foundation. So you've got the plan, got your goals in mind. Then you build the foundation. So you start doing some exercise. You start doing it consistently. You don't see much progress to start with, and that's very similar to building. You start pouring concrete, you start building a few walls, but it doesn't look like a house. Then once you've done those exercises for a few weeks, you then move on to some more advanced ones, or you start putting a bit more weight onto your exercise or the lifts that you're doing. Or when you're running, you could say only run a mile to start with, but after a couple of weeks you might be then running a mile and a half to 2 miles, and you're building it up to that goal. So then once you've finally built that house, once you finally reach the goal or fitness event that you want to get to, you then go, well, now what? And that's the same with a house. It's never really fully done. Okay, you decorate everything and you start living in it, but then you start thinking to yourself, I'm not really sure about that room or the layout there or the furniture in there, or I'm not really a fan of those sockets, so you start changing the sockets. So there's all these things that once you've reached your goals and you then start to tweak things and change things, it's always evolving, always changing. I just thought that was quite an interesting thing that they were talking about on the podcast, about being consistent and slow progress over time, and you get there, but then it never really fully finishes. There's always the next thing to do or the next thing to change with it. And I thought that was quite interesting, in the same way you could do that to your health and fitness. Takes a bit of time to start with, you don't see much progress, then all of a sudden you start seeing things and you start being able to do things, and blimey, that's pretty good. But then it never stops. You're always then trying to go on to the next thing or the next fitness event or the next challenge. And like anything, if you don't maintain that house, it starts to fall apart. That's the same with your fitness again. You don't maintain a regular good exercise routine or being consistent with it, your performance starts to drop off. Same with your nutrition aspect of it. You start eating too much again or eating the wrong things, then you start to put more weight on again. There you go. I thought that was quite interesting. All right, speak to you later.